Welcome to Property Showcase, the podcast that brings you closer to the service providers that can inform your decisions about how you buy, manage and research top investment opportunities. Be informed and become a better investor with Property Showcase.
G'day there guys and welcome back. It's Tom Gilmore here, your host for the Property Showcase today. I'm the Partnerships Manager here for Smart Property and Investment. Jumping right into it, I've got a very interesting individual in the room. You may have seen him around the Smart Property Investment website. You would have heard of him on the Smart Property Investment show before. He runs a buyer's agency called Dashdot down in Melbourne. He's certainly full of energy and has a lot to offer on a personal level. I do follow him, and to say that he is passionate about his role is certainly an understatement. Goose, how are you going?
Mate, I'm awesome. Thanks for the really stimulating introduction there.
Yeah, no problem at all. Now, Goose, we were chatting a bit off air before, and we actually just did an SPI show before this as well. And you touched base on what you're calling unicorn properties and how you approach them and why people should be investing in them. And as you know, everyone is in a different boat, of course. But more in particular, what I wanted to sort of knuckle down on is whenever I pick up the phone and speak to people, it's always the same conversation. Just, I'm struggling to find a property that fits my bill. There's no stock on the market. I'm looking in Brisbane, I'm looking in Sydney, and there's nothing for me. You as a buyer's agent, you've got research, data, facts around the whole nation, right? How do you go about identifying these unicorn properties, and how do you help people on a day-to-day basis? What's the process that you take them through?
Well, there's quite a lot to unpack there. So let's go into a few different ways. So the idea of these unicorn properties, it's pretty broad, colourful terminologies. But basically what we do for every single one of our clients is we follow a 3-point strategy. Now, this strategy is not kinda, sometimes sorta, maybe, if it kind of works. It's an all the time, every time must have in order to be able to get to the right place, the right property, right place, right time. So that must be positive cash flow, must be in a high growth area, and it must have a value add strategy attached to it in some way. So when we're talking about growth, what we're actually doing by strategically positioning ourselves at the right time and the right place, we're actually shooting to try and get 15% equity increase from the purchase price in the first 12 months. So, that's phenomenal. Now, to question how you can do that really becomes a context of where and when. So when we follow the 3-point guidance, the Holy Trinity strategy, that's going to allow you to build a scalable portfolio. But how do you find them? And this is kind of why people sometimes refer to this strategy as unicorns, because they believe that you can't find them, or they might not exist, or they only exist in a snapshot in time, which is true. So part of that snapshot and part of that positioning is to be in the market before all of the hordes of other buyers. The moment you hear an area called a hotspot, I guarantee it's probably time to get out. As simple as that. I talk to other professionals and stuff in the industry who, excitedly tell me that they're buying in markets for their clients where there's 17 offers on a single property, and that's some indication that, where they're buying is good. And to me, that doesn't make sense. It's a very red ocean kind of strategy. And, it's not very forward thinking. It's really trying to buy it in the now. And you're not really giving yourself the opportunity to start ahead, which also kind of indicates you're going to be starting behind. And because what you really want to do is you want to create that buffer, that security blanket that's going to be able to give you that cushioning and that positioning to accelerate as fast as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I suppose that kind of brings me into my next point. Even with the people listening right now, there's plenty of different ways to invest in property, correct? So, whether it is you're looking for, high yields, positive cash flow, everyone has a reason to do it.
Yep.
I want to go, on a personal, but I want to go on 4 holidays a year. I still want to be comfortable just, walking out in the streets, buying a bloody suit from politics, whatever it might be.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Can we just touch on that? Because you're exactly right. What we do as a business specifically is we help busy professionals and young families, typically entrepreneurially minded people, build scalable property portfolios and generate a passive income. Okay, that's very specific. Entrepreneurially minded professionals, young families who want to build a scalable portfolio. So that's buy multiple properties over and over again, grow it exponentially, and create a passive income. That's not for everyone. Some people, they subscribe to a different philosophy on how they want to grow their portfolio. They maybe are high net worth individuals. They don't want the positive cash flow. They're looking for different metrics, but that's not what we do. So in the belt of people that we serve, it's a super powerful strategy. So you've got to understand who you are and how that works and what's going to fit for you. But that all comes down from your outcomes. What are you trying to achieve and why? Now, because of who we are and where we are in the market and the discussions that I have, I tend to find that, it boils down to some pretty key things. Most people want to be able to work by choice, not desire, not necessity. So work by choice. Most people don't want to quit work, interestingly. They just want to have the choice, which is really interesting. They want to be able to take better care of their family. They want to be able to, go on more holidays. They want to build a legacy. Pretty much everything that they talk about, though, is geared around love. So love for someone else. And I don't mean that in some weird abstract sense. So some of the people I talk to, they're like, I want to build a high net worth in a short period of time so that I can set up a charitable trust or, start a foundation. Maybe they don't have family. Other people really want to go, look, I really want to take care of my kids, or I want to be a better person for my wife, or whatever. There's different reasons, but every single one that's kind of, looking to find that way to create a position in their portfolio that they can buy properties over and over and over again and create a passive income stream, they are typically, falling into an entrepreneurial mindset. And they're all going to have that bigger picture goal where they want to have an impact outside of themselves. It's not about piling up cash and, going, oh, look at me. It's about what you can do with it and having that real mission.
Absolutely. Well, you've definitely targeted me. I'm not going to lie, mate. Well, look, it seems that, this is going on 24/7, right? So this goes quite deep, the relationship that you take investors through their property journey. And, for people who are, perhaps, listening into this podcast, whether you're a first home buyer or perhaps someone with a 30 plus property portfolio, what do you find is the biggest challenge that people face in the property game today?
That's a really interesting question. There is no one big thing. However, you can probably boil it down to three. It is finance, risk, and time. Okay. And let's kind of just dissect those. Finance can be from a perspective of, I don't know how you, so when you kind of position yourself in your now state and your future state, and how you're going to transition from where you are now to where you want to be, which might be from 1 or 0 or 5 properties right now to, 10, 20, 3, 9, whatever it's going to be. How are you going to do that? How are you going to make sure you can financially lever between those steps, which is what we absolutely help with. And in fact, because 75% of property investors get stuck at one property, 90% don't get past 2, that's really mostly based around finance, rather than anything else. And it's because people haven't bought strategically. They haven't increased their serviceable income. And so from a really tactical perspective, we can actually work with people to find the property that they can buy that is going to get them unstuck, which sounds kind of counterintuitive. Let's say I've got 2 properties and I don't think I can borrow any more money, but we can find a property that you can buy that is actually going to unstick you. So that's a really tactical thing that we can help people do. And the way I like to think about it is, I don't see what we do as being transactory. A lot of people, think it's like a shop and, can you just buy me a property? No, I actually don't work with people who just say, can you buy me a property? I might just go,
See you later.
See you later. But if you want to build a portfolio, if you want to move from that current state to that future state, that's what we're all about, right? So the finance is a big piece, and it's about being able to create an environment, a wealth ecosystem, I like to call it, where the properties can not only self-fund all of their own debts, all of their own expenses, but they're also going to be able to help liquidate their own equity to fund future purchases. And this creates a really unique space that I call fractal economics, which is basically opens up a positioning for you to be able to build an exponential portfolio. So if you can say buy a property and in the first year get say 100 to 200% cash on cash return, which sounds crazy, but the maths is there and we do this every day, right? But it's just outside of what people's normal scope is. But if you can do that and you can achieve that, what you're going to be able to do is very quickly leverage that into another property. And if you're buying with the same buying avatar, same buying protocol, you're going to be able to do that again. And then that 2 is going to become 3, that 3 is going to become 5, that 5 is going to become 7. It's not a purely linear double, because that doesn't work on an economic scale, but it creates that ability to scale up. So that kind of solves the finance piece. If you can segment that out so that the portfolio can self-perpetuate to a certain degree, it takes the finance equation out of it and also de-risks their financial position so that if they lose their job or someone gets sick, there's not that stress that can drive people insane. So the other part, obviously, it is risk, knowledge. People may have an indication that they might have done some cursory research, they might understand what a good yield is, but really knowing whether you're buying in the right place at the right time is critical. And the way I see it is we outsource stuff every day. Every single person on this planet is outsourced. Well, maybe not every person on the planet, but most people, certainly in our society, are going to be outsourcing stuff on an almost daily basis. You'll either be outsourcing your entertainment, outsourcing your attention, outsourcing your transport. You're going to be outsourcing something. And really the way I see it is finding those specialists that are going to be able to work in that space and to be able to dissect that, because it's a gamble against your own capabilities to go, I believe that I know better than somebody who maybe is in the space all the time. And I tend to find that most people aren't prepared to hedge against themselves because people are filled with inherent doubt. There's a natural questioning part inside ourselves where where most people will think, am I right? And having that professional second opinion is critical. And obviously we're positioning ourselves in the market to know where to be ahead of where all of the general buyers need to be. So that in and of itself nets, multiples of returns over what the standard investor is going to be able to do. So it's that kind of de-risking it through knowledge and strategic positioning in the market, understanding what types of assets to buy and how to leapfrog that forward. And then of course there's the time equation. Now, just to, I guess, give a bit of an example. So we had a client recently and he's pretty, this is a pretty common story. So he'd been looking for about 6 months. Now, he was probably a little bit more zealous than others, but he said he was spending up to 20 hours a week for 6 months. Now, he ended up coming to work with us because he had a baby on the way and he realized time was running out and he hadn't been able to solve those things. He was reasonably sophisticated, but he couldn't move past that self-doubt. He couldn't really understand if he was actually making the right decision. He ended up reaching out. The difference between that point when he signed on and us started working together, 6 hours is all of his contact time, and he ended up with a cash flow positive property that's about $35,000 under market value, and he's going to be ready to go again in about 90 days.
Can I ask, was he gobsmacked?
Yeah. But he was over the moon. He was absolutely wrapped. He was just and they've just had a baby and it's all fantastic. They literally just settled on a house. It's already netting good returns for them. They're already ahead of the game. They've already cushioned themselves against the market, and he's just had a baby. He couldn't be happier. And the big thing for him is he got his time freedom back. He was able to trust in our process and really just get that freedom to spend time with his heavily pregnant wife at that point and focus on the things that really matter. This is what it's all about. Most people don't actually care about property. What they care about is that future state. And so understanding the highest leverage way that you can get there whilst not sacrificing the things that matter. If your big why, if the big purpose is I want to be able to spend more time with my family, have quality time and share my love with those people that I love, then switching that around and going, I'm going to use up all of my spare time trying to get there hopefully in 20 years or whatever, it's kind of counterintuitive. You're going to be making a sacrifice now that you don't need to make in order to achieve a future state that you hope that you can get. And that can be detrimental to the now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. But look, everyone listening, if this is you in the current situation, Goose, how do we get in touch with you?
Well, we're pretty active on Facebook, so facebook.com/dash.buyers agents. Obviously, our website, dash.com.au. And yeah, reach out. You can hit us up via email. And in fact, we're really passionate about, wanting to give people guidance, because a lot of people, I think the reason most people get stuck is they don't have a clear strategy. They don't understand that whatever the next step they take needs to be positioning them to take, their second and third step. Doesn't matter where you are. You could have 9 properties or 2 or 1 or none, right? You've got to look forward and you've got to go, okay, based on where I am right now, how am I going to move towards my end goal? So I actually wanted to offer a one-on-one strategy. So to create a strategic roadmap for the first 20 people that get in touch. So you can reach out shoot us a message on Facebook or send us a contact on the website. So that's www.dash.com.au or facebook.com/dash.buyers agents. Hit us up. The first 20 people, I will slice out a portion of my time in the week. We'll have a one-on-one consultation, video consultation. I'll help you understand the best next steps for you, and we'll come up with a strategic roadmap that you'll be able to walk away with and you'll be able to apply either yourself or take that wherever you want and do whatever you want with it. It's super valuable.
Mate, I'm absolutely sold. Guys, you've heard it here first, so please don't hesitate to get in touch with the Goose by the appropriate channels. You can also find Dash Dot all over the Smart Property Investment website. You can see it through our daily bulletins that we send out. You can also hear Goose and the Dash Dot Buyers Agency on the Smart Property Investment Show, which we do record weekly. Goose, it's been an absolute pleasure. Mate, thank you for coming in and doing this, but I'd love to get you in here again and see how things are going in the next session.
Mate, absolutely great. So absolutely love being here. It's always good to spend some time with you and always good to, share our passion with the listeners of their Smart Property Investment and Property Showcase.
Perfect. All right. Until next time.
Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I'm your host for today. My name's Alex Whitlock. Sometimes appear on the SPI show. I barged in and wanted to get involved in this showcase today for very selfish reasons. I'm a property investor. Got in excess of 20 properties in my portfolio. I use a property manager for all of them, and I believe very strongly in property management. So when I heard that Mark Trowell was going to come along and join us today from Yabonza, I was very, very keen to get a chance to catch up with him to have a look at a platform which is pretty revolutionary in the property management space. It purports to offer all the services that a traditional property manager would offer, but at a significantly lower cost and based on a fairly sophisticated tech platform. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, look, let's just first of all kick off. Before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of the platform, what was it that took you into looking to create something as an alternative to traditional property management for Australian investors?
Yeah, I'd had my own personal experiences with my own investment properties. And apart from that, I was also I've been for the last 27 years really involved a lot around sort of property management, property itself, my own investment journey, and also a lot to do with real estate technology, having previously worked for one of the investment banks who banks 40% of the property real estate agents in the country, and seeing really at a very in-depth level where those businesses go wrong.
So for me as an investor, as I said, sort of when we got going, I use a property manager. I believe very strongly in property management. I think it's each their own, but I think there can be many pitfalls in looking at self-managing. There can be many frustrations. Look, the obvious attraction for investors is you want to save yourself a few dollars. One of the benefits of using a property manager is I know that the property manager will take care of everything for me, getting the property listed, dealing with the open house, routine inspections. Now, for Yabonza as a platform, I'm just trying to get my head around how do you manage to give your clients, investors like me, all of these services at a lower rate, but without being a sort of a national traditional property management business?
Yeah, it's a good point that you'd actually touched on there around self-managed. That's one thing that it's not self-managed. And it's an interesting point to distinguish because what we've actually done here is looked at where the value actually sits. And a lot of the time, a lot of people miss that value around the relationship. So we've really turned that around to say, okay, how can we ensure that we can operate everywhere without being anywhere effectively and really have people on the ground wherever we need them? But how can we look at the services different? And then really at the end of the day is how do we offer more value to you as the landlord? So how do we build that relationship? And actually what we've actually done in our business is brought in the concept of a Yabonza asset manager. So that person's sole goal there is to service you as a landlord, regardless of where your property sits.
This is a term that I love because at the end of the day, and I think one of the missed opportunities in traditional property management is it's not really property management, it's asset management.
Yep.
You are managing an asset. This is something that investors like me hold great stock in the future for future wealth, for an opportunity to retire. So I love the term asset management.
Yeah, and that's what we really wanted to focus on. It's your asset. It's not a problem anymore. So traditionally, a lot of property managers, and I feel for them, a lot of them are overworked because they've got so many functions they've actually got to carry out. And if we break that down and go, okay, we could democratize those services, put them into more specialist areas and focus them as an individual task. And then as you as a landlord say, well, what do you want from your property journey? Are you looking to create capital growth? Is it income? Is there other things that we can do to extract further value for you? Versus just trying to stick up the rent when we can. Some of that may even be able to say we need to bring down the rent for a certain period to reduce vacancy factors. There's a plethora of tools, I guess, out there available to us as relationship managers or as asset managers that can increase your ROI over time.
So just so I can get some sort of scope on the range. And for people who are listening who are maybe at that point of their journey where they're looking to appoint a property manager, just tell me whereabouts, are you a metro-based business? Whereabouts do you cover? Are you just sort of Sydney-centric?
We're everywhere. So everywhere in Australia. And
everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
Absolutely.
So I could name any suburb and you've got coverage.
Go for it.
All right. You've got me convinced. How do you do that? That's pretty remarkable.
So one of the things we had to do was really tap into what we call that on-demand workforce or gig economy. So there is a lot of what we call ex-property managers out there, or people who are actually willing to carry out those individual tasks that are what we call physical attributes of managing the property, or something that is needed to be local to the property. And those are holding keys, running open for inspections, running property condition reports and routine inspections. So we tap into that network right the way across the country. It wasn't easy to start that out. I'll be honest with you, there's always teething problems in getting that going, but we've just run through a 12-month, what we call foundation phase, and we've successfully come out the back of that where we've built this network right the way across Australia. In the UK, we have a similar thing, but they've already been micro businesses that have sprung up around some of those adjacent services that are quite effective. So it's enabled us to actually manage properties in London from our office here in North Sydney with 0 people on the ground over there.
Now, I've got a portfolio that spans a number of states. I got quite a shock when I bought my property down in Hobart. the agency that I dealt with there was looking for an 8.5% management fee. I've got other places. I've just recently settled on a place in Newport where the agent is looking for a 5.5% fee. Mm-hmm. How do your fees break down state by state? What's the difference?
They're the same wherever they are. 3.9% inclusive of GST. 3.9%.
So even if I engaged you in Hobart,
yep,
3.9%.
3.9%. We have properties down in Launceston at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're all at 3.9%.
I wish I spoke to you a couple of years ago.
You can bring them across.
So let's just look at the process now. So let's say I decided that I want to either switch a property. Let's say I've got a new investment. What is the process? How do I work with Yabonza? What's the process for me as an investor?
Look, there's many channels. Obviously, you can go online and find us online and then submit an online inquiry, in which case our Yabonza asset managers can follow you up with a call, find out what you're actually looking to achieve and where your property is, and then we can start that process for you. One of the things that we're looking to do, or we actually have done, is make it as seamless as possible for you to move across to us.
Okay, so how does that work? So if I already have maybe a portfolio in a couple of different areas, or maybe just one property, how easy is it to move across?
All it requires from you is a signed management agents agreement and a letter of authority, and we do the rest. Okay. We'll contact your previous agents. We'll then start the onboarding process with them. Typically, it takes between 30 to 60 days, depending on your existing contract that you have with your property manager.
Okay. So let's say, so look, the fees are certainly very, very competitive. I don't have anything anywhere near 3.9 on my properties. And so I assume that me as an investor, I get some sort of dashboard to look at?
Yep, that's correct. You'll get a log into the Yabonza portfolio. From there, you'll see literally everything that's going on. One of the things that we've been really conscious of in creating this whole platform is solving a lot of those problems that kind of exist where people are saying, I don't know what's going on, I can't see what's happening, I'm not being communicated with. So what we've really ensured that is there is as much transparency and communication as possible. So everything that actually gets done on your property is actually logged into the platform, plus all your property details, any documentation that you have around that property, everything is there for you to actually go in. You can see what's happening. You can bring down documents as you need.
Now, I know that one of the things that investors, certainly with more than one property, will be thinking is about collection of rent.
Yep.
This is a challenge, Just tell me about how Yabonza goes about taking rent. Where does it go once it's collected?
It goes straight to the landlord.
Straight to the landlord.
So it goes straight. So that's one of the things that we've been working on for quite a bit of time is really, we launched obviously in our early days with trust accounts to follow the legislation. So that we're legislatively compliant in terms of the platform and the way we operate with landlord ledgers, tenant ledgers, receipts and all that sort of stuff. So you've got a payment gateway, the same as you'd have with PayPal via eBay. Is that sort of deal? Absolutely, it's the same sort of thing. So we've got our own internal payment gateway that we own, and we're actually able to take from many sources. So if you've got one tenant or you've got many tenants in your property, we can actually take individually, we can split the rent between them, we aggregate that amount up, and then we can pay that down to the landlord, net of any disbursements that need to be made.
Mark, you've got me sold. How do our listeners get involved in Yabonza? Tell me the simple steps for getting switched over.
Easiest step is you actually go to our website, yabonza.com, and you'll be able to submit an online inquiry from there and we'll pick it straight up.
Mark, it's been great talking to you. I strongly suggest you go and check out the website. I have to say, when I did a quick sort of look over before catching up with Mark, I was fairly staggered at the cost effectiveness of this platform. Really is pretty remarkable. So go check it out. It's yabonza.com.
Yep, that's right.
Fantastic.
Yabonza.com.
Thanks for your time, Mark.
No worries. Thank you.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.